It was supposed to be an exciting day. Had just bought my dream car. A brand new lime green Tesla. I'd worked hard for years, saving every penny, and finally, that moment had come. I parked it proudly right outside my home, camera ready, to snap a few pics. I didn't know that was the exact moment everything would spiral into chaos. Enter Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA. You know the type. Clipboard in one hand, complaints in the other, always ready to enforce rules that don't even exist. And for some reason, my car, my color choice, and even where I parked it, all seemed to set her off like a firecracker at first. It was just some passive-aggressive comments. This doesn't belong here, or that car's too flashy for our neighborhood. I brushed it off. I thought, hey, maybe she's just having a bad day. But I was wrong. So wrong. The next morning, I came out to find something that made my heart drop. My Tesla's windshield shattered. Deep dents across the hood, and an actual axe still lying on the ground. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And the craziest part, she was still there, shouting about property values and how cars like this don't belong in her neighborhood. I was in shock, but not for long, 'cause what she didn't know is that my home security cameras caught every second of what she did. Every swing, every word, every reckless act. And I had a plan not just to hold her accountable, but to make sure she regretted ever messing with the wrong neighbor. But when the police showed up and saw who was involved, things took a turn I didn't expect. What happened next? Let's just say, Karen got a reality check she never saw coming, and it all unraveled faster than she could say, HOA violation. As the officers stepped out of their patrol car, Karen's entire attitude shifted. Gone was the wild yelling now. She played innocent, acting like she was the one being attacked. He parked illegally, she said, pointing at me like I was the criminal. That car's a safety hazard. I was just protecting the neighborhood. One of the officers looked at her, clearly confused, then back at the Tesla with the smashed windshield and scattered glass. I stayed calm, even though my hands were shaking. I have it all on video, I said, motioning toward the house. That seemed to stop Karen in her tracks for a second, but only for a second. She doubled down, trying to twist the story. This is HOA property, she insisted. He's breaking community rules. That's when I explained again that I wasn't even part of her HOA. My house sat just outside the border. Her rules didn't apply to me, and she knew it. That only seemed to make her angrier. Over the past few months, she'd harassed other neighbors to sending warnings for lawn heights, mailbox styles, and even flag colors. Everyone walked on. Eggshells around her, she'd made herself the unofficial sheriff of the street, and most people didn't dare push back. But I wasn't like most people. This car meant something to me. It wasn't just transportation, it represented years of hustle and sacrifice. And now, here it was, destroyed in my own driveway by a woman who thought she was above the law. The officers took statements, but Karen still acted like she had the upper hand. I know the board, she whispered to one of them. They'll back me up. I watched her, wondering how someone could be so bold, so entitled, and still think there wouldn't be consequences. But what she didn't realize is that the story was just getting started. The footage I had was crystal clear, and I wasn't the only neighbor who'd had enough. Behind closed doors, more people were ready to speak out once the truth started coming out. Things would spiral in a direction Karen never saw coming. Later that evening, I sat at my kitchen table, replaying the footage over and over again. It felt unreal, watching someone completely lose it over a parked car, especially one not even under her jurisdiction. But the more I watched, the more I realized this wasn't just about me. This was about control. Karen didn't just hate the car, she hated the fact that she couldn't control what I did. She couldn't stand that someone outside her HOA bubble was living freely right next door. That's when I decided to talk to my neighbors. I started with Mark, the guy 2 doors down. He'd once had a warning slapped on his door for having too many garden gnomes. Yes, garden gnomes. He told me Karen had tried to fine him, even though she had no real power outside the HOA. Then there was Jasmine, a single mom who said Karen had threatened to tow her car for being too old and rusty looking. Again, no authority, just intimidation. The stories kept piling up. Some were small annoyances, others borderline harassment. Everyone was fed up, but no one had ever stood up to her publicly. She was loud, relentless, and had a way of twisting facts until people just gave up. But this time, I had something one else had dash-proof dots still. Even with the footage, I could tell something wasn't right. Karen hadn't been arrested. The officers gave her a warning and said they'd review the evidence. But she wasn't acting like someone worried about consequences. In fact, the next morning, I found a nasty note on my porch. "You're not welcome here. Sell the car or else." It wasn't signed, but I knew exactly who it was from. When I realized this was bigger than a broken windshield, it was about power, intimidation, and a pattern of behavior that had gone unchecked for too long. Karen had built a little kingdom here, and anyone who didn't play by her rules became a target. But she didn't know I wasn't backing down. Not this time. And she definitely wasn't ready for what I was planning next. By the end of the week, I'd had enough. My car was still in the shop, my insurance company was asking questions, and Karen was walking around the neighborhood like nothing ever happens, smiling, waving, even stopping by new neighbors to introduce herself and hand them printed HOA guidelines that didn't apply to half the street. She was bold, too bold. And I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I made copies of the video and printed still frames showing her mid-swing with the axe. I didn't post it online yet. Instead, I slipped one copy to the local neighborhood attorney who lived a block over, a guy named Alan who'd had his own run-in with Karen over a fence dispute. Another copy went to the actual HOA board president who seemed genuinely surprised by what Karen had done. "We don't condone this," he said, looking embarrassed. Apparently, even the HOA had tried to rein her in but failed because she kept acting on her own. But even with pressure starting to build against her, Karen didn't slow down. One night, I noticed her standing across the street watching my house. No words, just staring. It was creepy, and honestly, it told me everything I needed to know she wasn't afraid. She thought she was untouchable. That's when I installed extra cameras around my house and even set up motion-triggered lights. I wasn't just protecting my property, was gathering more evidence. Then came the neighborhood meeting. It was the first time in a long while that so many people showed up. Karen walked in like she owned the place, clipboard in hand, acting like she was the host. But this time, something was different. People whispered. Others avoided eye contact, and I could feel the air shift. My heart was racing. I had the flash drive in my pocket, and I was next on the list to speak. Everything had led up to this. Weeks of stress, damage, threats, and now I was about to go public in front of everyone. Karen still didn't know what was coming, but that was about to change. I stood up, my palms a little sweaty, heart thudding in my chest as I stepped forward. Karen sat near the front, flipping through her notes like she was about to lead the entire meeting. She didn't even glance my way. She didn't have to. In her mind, she had this whole neighborhood wrapped around her finger. But as I plugged the flash drive into the projector and the first frame appeared, crystal clear, still of her holding that red axe, her entire body stiffened. I didn't say a word for the first 10 seconds. Just let the silence settle. Eyes locked on the screen, then I spoke, calm and direct. This is what happened to my car, right in front of my house. And this wasn't the first time she's done something like this. A few gasps echoed across the room. Karen jumped up, shouting over me. This is fake. He edited it. This is slander. But the video kept rolling. Frame by frame, everyone saw the truth. Her yelling, the axe swing, the windshield shattering. Still, just when I thought this was the moment that would finally take her down, something unexpected happened. Another man stood up, someone I didn't recognize at first, tall, maybe in his 60s. That's not the only damage she's done, he said loudly, holding up a thick folder. I've got years of incident reports, ignored complaints, and witness statements. She slashed my tires in 2022 over a flag on my porch. The police never followed through. Karen's face turned pale. She looked around the room, no longer in control. And then came the real twist. The board president stood and said, "We just discovered Karen's not even a current member of the HOA committee. Her term ended over a year ago. She's been acting without any authority." The entire room went quiet. That changed everything. She wasn't just out of control, she'd been posing as someone with power she didn't even have. The stakes suddenly shot up. What else had she done? Who else had been targeted under false pretenses? And more importantly, what was she going to do now that the truth was finally out in the open? Karen stood frozen as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Her usual confidence cracked right in front of us. The board president's voice cut through the tension, effective immediately. Karen is banned from participating in any HOA activities. We're reporting everything we've seen tonight to the authorities. Karen tried to push back, blaming everyone but herself, but no one was buying it. One by one, neighbors began sharing their stories, things they'd kept quiet about for years. Lawn threats, parking harassment, petty fines, verbal abuse, it all came pouring out. It was like a dam had burst. And with every story, Karen shrank deeper into her seat. She wasn't the feared enforcer anymore, just a bitter woman who got caught going too far. A few days later, the police came back with a formal charge of property damage. Insurance confirmed she was liable, and I finally got the green light to repair my Tesla with every penny covered. She had to write a statement admitting fault to avoid heavier legal consequences. For someone like her, that public humiliation stung more than anything else. Things in the neighborhood began to shift. People smiled more. The energy felt lighter. Jasmine even hosted a small block party to celebrate freedom from HOA Karen. And for the first time in a long while, folks actually showed up. Karen stayed inside, but just when I thought the dust had settled, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photo of my car, taken from across the street, and a note that read, "Not everyone forgets so easily." Wasn't signed, but the handwriting? I'd seen it before, those same shaky, angry loops from the first note I'd found on my porch. Karen Mintoff lost her power, her fake title, even her reputation. But something told me this wasn't over. Not entirely. She was quiet now, but that silence, it felt more like a warning than a retreat. And I knew some storms don't end. They just wait. After that letter, I stayed alert. I double-checked the locks at night, kept my security system running, and made sure every camera was recording. But weeks passed, and nothing happened. No more threats, no new damage, no sightings of Karen lurking around. It was like she'd vanished, either too embarrassed to show her face, or finally realizing that no one in the neighborhood feared her anymore. Whatever the case, peace returned. Slowly but surely, my Tesla came back from the shop looking brand new and somehow even shinier than before. Every time I pulled into my driveway, I felt a little sense of victory, not just because the car was fixed, but because I'd stood up to someone who tried to tear me down for no reason. And more importantly, I wasn't alone. The neighbors who once stayed silent had become more connected, more willing to speak up. It felt like a new chapter for all of us. The HOA board updated its rules and made them public, including a clear list of who was officially on the committee. They even sent out a community-wide memo encouraging people to report overreach or harassment, ensuring what happened with Karen wouldn't happen again. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As for Karen, last I heard, she put her house up for sale. Maybe she realized the neighborhood wasn't hers to control anymore. Or maybe she just couldn't handle being ignored. Either way, she faded into the background quietly and without another word. Looking back, the whole situation taught me something important. Sometimes standing up for yourself isn't just about you, it's about setting an example, about showing others they don't have to stay quiet. And while not every fight ends clean, some battles are worth it just for the change they bring. So, yeah, my car got wrecked, but in the end, I gained something even better: a voice, a stronger community, and the peace of knowing that no matter how loud a Karen gets, the truth speaks louder.